The system of segregation was a bitter pill.
We were informed that Reverend King had been taken down to Reidsville at 4:05 this morning. We prepared a writ of habeas corpus, which we plan to submit this morning at 8 o'clock. However, when we called at 8 for the purpose of ascertaining the whereabouts of the sheriff for making service, we were informed that Reverend King had been taken down to Reidsville at 4:05 this morning.
After representing King before the Georgia Court of Appeals, Hollowell chartered a plane to Reidsville to pick up his client, 8 days after police jailed him in Atlanta.
Dr. King would not have been released unless there was some legal action taken to release him. And the legal action that was taken to release him was a habeas corpus petition that Horace Ward and Don Hollowell prepared and fought. It was Horace Ward and Don Hollowell who were driving up and down the roadway of Georgia, going back and forth from Atlanta to Reidsville.
In protest of the Jim Crow practices among Atlanta's white businesses, Atlanta student movement leaders staged mass sit-ins at local department stores. On October 19, 1960, veteran civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King joined the demonstration, and he was among the over 50 demonstrators arrested, including SNCC leaders and 5 student body presidents from the Atlanta University complex. One of them was Julian Bond.
I had been chosen out of the group arrested at Atlanta City Hall to be tried for my group. I'm standing between these two men whom I meet for the first time in my life, Donald Hollowell on my right, A.T. Walden on my left, and I really don't understand what's happening. It's the first time I've ever been in court. And there's some back and forth between these two men and the judge. And the judge says to me, "How do you plead?" Well, I was stunned. How do I plead? I didn't know what to do. I turned to look at Colonel Walden, who was the older of these two men, and he was engaged in a conversation with the bailiff. So I couldn't get an answer there. I turned to Don Hollowell, and he said in this stage whisper, I'm sure could be heard throughout the whole classroom, he said, "Not guilty, you fool." And I said, "Not guilty."
I was the first young law school graduate that Hollowell brought to his office. Horace Ward came in September. And we had a very good time. I carried Hollowell's briefcase, I drove his car, I did his research. I studied under him. I was his law clerk, I was his intern, I was his mentee. And we had lots of little cases, too numerous to mention, having to do with violations of civil rights. And the most significant by far was the University of Georgia case.
I would just like to think that the people at the university and around the university are sufficiently fair-minded to want to see any Georgia citizen get the best education possible at the facilities which are provided by the state.
Once we had gotten into university, for example, we were suspended the second day we were on the campus because of the riot outside of my dormitory. And we came to Atlanta in the middle of the night, and the next day the lawyers, Hollowell and Motley, went to court to get us readmitted. The Albany movement mobilized mass demonstrations, bus boycotts, sit-ins, and jail-ins. On December 16, 1961, after more than 500 demonstrators had been arrested, SCLC leaders Martin Luther King and Ralph David Abernathy joined the Albany movement with a prayer vigil at City Hall.
Don't move out or you're under arrest. Either one now. Doesn't make a difference.
Responding to the arrest, Hollowell teamed up with his longtime friend C.B. King, Albany's noted civil rights attorney.
Hollowell and C.B. King raised the legal questions and forced the government, both at the local and national level, local, state, and national levels, to face the issues of segregation and discrimination and brutality on the part of law enforcement officials. So they did it brilliantly, and Albany was never the same.
These are unsung, not much appreciated heroes. And most people who benefited from their commitment and from their talents don't know their name, but know what they do. But they are the beneficiaries of these lawyers, black lawyers who went home from law school to make their talents as lawyers available to the ultimate aspirations of black people: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness on the basis of equal opportunity. That's the American way.